Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Maria Cristina Moscatelli. Cristina, we are very glad to have you here with our Cedric webinar. This Cedric project intends to create a sustainable cross-border agro-ecosystem by leveraging root microbiome biodiversity. And I don't go into the project objectives. However, I want to say that it's mainly about to develop and validate root microbiome transplantation methods and to create a platform to do that, and also to develop a training program on the role of healthy microbiomes in soil ecosystems and the benefits associated with it. And we want to transfer this knowledge also to the society. And our Cedric webinars are mainly about soil health and biodiversity, bioinoculants for agriculture, and sustainability and science communication. And today's seminar is mainly about science and soil science communication with Cristina Moscatelli. And in that case, I can already ask Cristina to start with her talk about communicating soil, effective tools, and languages. Cristina, we are very much looking forward to your presentation.
Good morning to everybody, and let me thank Professor Int'l for inviting me to give this, let's say, unusual talk for me, because I will deal with a side interest of mine. So my main field of interest and of research and teaching activity is soil biochemistry. But as Professor Int'l knows, I'm very interested and worried about the problems in communicating soil science to the broader audience, to the general public. So there is a problem in communicating soil for many reasons that I will explore now in my talk. Also, I would like to emphasize, I have a problem with my vocal cords, so I hope that my voice will not betray me during the talk. So let's start. And my presentation has been organized in 7 points. And I will start with some soil facts that I don't know, probably most of you already know, but I don't have an idea of what kind of audience I have in front of me. So just to remember some basic aspects. First of all, we soil scientists, we all know that soil forming process is a very long one. Soil is a non-renewable resource. And so pedogenesis is a very slow process. It takes from 100 to 1,000 years to obtain 1 centimeter soil. We are all aware of this. On the other hand, we witness every day scaring information about the soil's degradation process, which occurs at a very high rate. And nowadays we have 33% of Earth's soils already degraded, and more than double could be degraded by 2050. This is what the forecasts say. This is one of the first aspects that where I find an inconsistency between what we know, what we scientists know, and what is the current situation of soils. Then another aspect, I mean, talking about biogeochemical cycles, we know how plants and soils are strictly linked to each other in a huge process of symbiosis, as I read one day in a book, where the oxidation of organic carbon to carbon dioxide, which occurs in the soil and performed by microbes, releases nutrients, the oxidation of, yes, organic carbon releases nutrients which are available for plants. So we know this, but if soils are degraded, sealed, polluted, or even eroded, so physically missing, this process is blocked, so nutrients are no more available for plants. And again, there is another strong inconsistency between these two situations. So what we know as soil scientists and what is the status of soils. I finished this first part with the first point with a slide, an infographics that you certainly, all of you have seen several times, which is the list of the many soil the many functions that soils perform, divided into ecological and socioeconomical functions. This was released by FAO in 2015. But on the other side, I give you some figures of Italy. In the last year, we lost, through soil consumption, 20 hectares per day of soil. And the rate is 2.3 square meters per second. So 7% of the territory is lost in Italy. This is according to the last report on soil consumption released just 3 months ago. The territory is covered by cement and other infrastructure. So this means that we have lost all these precious functions, not only the provision of food, which is the one that everybody knows, and even not everybody. If you ask to the general public, to ordinary people, sometimes they don't even think about this important function of soil. But then there are all the others that most people even do not know. So we lose all these functions if we lose soil. So again, another inconsistency. So what struck me was that I was thinking about this in these last years, despite the scientific evidence on time scale of soils renewal and of the important functions that soil performs, their degradation has not been prevented. So there is a disconnect between awareness, what we know as scientists about the properties, fragilities, and current threats on soils, and their actual status. So something is going wrong. It means that our knowledge doesn't cross the borders of science. It remains somehow locked between inside our community, within our community. So there is a lack of soil awareness in the general public, in decision makers, policy makers, and we as scientists, we should do something. I now try to analyze what are the possible reasons for this. And I have two groups of possible reasons, number 2 and number 3. First of all, so if we have degradation, it means that there is poor valorization and poor stewardship. So this means that our society fails to recognize the fundamental role of soil. The neglect of soil is rooted into, I would say, 4 main categories of reasons. Some of them are linked to just an awareness of it, and some others of disregard. We start with an awareness. Kun Garcia in 2014 wrote, most people are soil blind. So actually people living in urban areas do not merely see the soil. So it is difficult to be aware of something that you don't see, that you don't perceive. And the perception changes from a micro scale to a micro scale, also in relation to how much we are involved with soil, how much we are related to soil. So starting from a micro scale, I start with the example that I already gave to you. People in urban areas do not see the soil, they do not perceive its presence. When looking at the landscape, well, the landscape is something a little bit fuzzy. So where is the soil? The soil is embedded within the landscape. If you are not completely involved in soil knowledge and study, you don't exactly know what is the role, the function of soil inside the landscape. You don't even see it somehow. Then there is the soil of the farmers, the soil in agricultural sciences, which is more related to the surface or the very first depth. Then we reach the interface of the above ground and below ground system, the one where plant roots meets the soil, and which is the one where probably this, where certainly not probably this project, the strategic project is focused on. And then we go a little bit further deep into the 3 phases system of the soil. The soil is made of a solid phase, organic and inorganic, a liquid phase, and a gaseous phase. And they're all mixed up in a 3-dimensional mixture, very, very complex to study. If we go a little bit in deep, we can see the complex organization, 3-dimensional organization of soil aggregates, within which the life is hidden, is protected. The immense forms, the many forms of life, the fascinating world of soil biota, where we are all in a certain way, all of us are in a certain way involved. I know that there are soil microbiologists in this group and me as a soil biochemist. So there are different levels of perception of soil, and this is the first point. Historical social reason. If you remember in the second, you know that after the second half of the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution caused a gradual disenfranchisement of mankind from the soil. So the peasants, who represented the lowest social rank of the society, wanted to get rid of this position and moved towards the city. So this is a disregard towards soil started. Then there is a cultural disregard. The cultural disregard is related to the idea of how our collective imagination links soils to death, to the concept of death, of graves, of burials. I found a painting of the 14th century dealing with the crucifixion, so religious theme, and at the bottom of this painting there is a soil with a hole, and inside the hole there is a skeleton peeping out. So again, the soil is associated to death or to hell, as in Dante's Divine Comedy. Hell is located in the subsoil, while in contrast with the heaven, which is in the sky. In this case, so this is a disregard of soil. Also, we lost the direct link of soil with food. I mean, particularly people living in the cities, in the towns, metropolitan areas, they are no more used to see the origin of food from soil. The food is present in the supermarket shelves, and we know how food quality is linked to soil quality. But when we talk about soil quality, nobody knows what we're talking about, while anybody is strongly concerned every day with air quality and water quality. Also, I ascribe the lack of soil awareness also to a problem of fuzzy definitions of soil and terminology, so also a semantic issue. Let's talk about fuzzy definitions. The definition of soil is not a unique one. In a very nice review of 2016, Alfred Artemink listed 45 different definitions taken from soil science textbooks or articles and so on, ranging from 1900 to 2014. Recently, last year, the same author, together with Alex McBratney, finally proposed a new paradigm of the definition for soil, a short one and a long one. I'm not going through them, but just to underline two aspects. The first one, that these definitions are given with very simple terms. They are not scientific terms, so they can be understood by everybody who reads them. Second point, they stress the point to the role of soil in supporting terrestrial ecosystems and humanity. So we all depend on soil. This is very important. Also, there are many actors in our society dealing with soil. So soil is considered from different perspectives. There is the archaeologist, the geologist, the agronomist, the pedologist, the engineer. So these different perspectives may be grouped into three main categories. A perspective dealing with the economic aspect of soil. So soil is seen as a factor of production. So only the productive potential of soil is considered, a surface value is considered. There is the cultural perspective in looking at the soil and dealing with the soil, which is the archaeological context. Sometimes I hear archaeologists talking about the digging context, where they dig out the archaeological remains. The digging context, well, that is soil. Call it with its name, it's soil. And then religious and secular myths and beliefs that have always dealt with soil. And finally, there is the ecological perspective, the ecological view that we have as soil scientists, agroecologists, and everybody who is involved in environmental sciences. It is also a semantic issue, according to me. There's a matter of terms. First of all, the terms ground, territory, land, sometimes they're used as synonyms of soil, but they're vague and they embed the soil is embedded in the term land, so it loses its own identity. Soil is indicated as a natural resource. The term resource recalls exploitation. Resources are to be exploited. And also, this is also a critic. This has been also criticized in the literature when talking about ecosystem services. These services are considered benefits for mankind. So in both situations, resource and services, soil can be seen, or ecosystems are seen as commodities that man uses and abuses of. So probably instead of natural resource, it would be better to talk about an environmental matrix, as air and water are in the ecosystem, within the ecosystem. And instead of ecosystem services, probably functions would be more appropriate. In some books, papers, we read that soil is the skin of the planet, soil is the surface. This is a reductionist approach because it only shows a bidimensional entity, but soils are not bidimensional, they're a three-dimensional. So the third dimension, which is depth, thickness, is completely forgotten, and it is very important because looking at the soil profile, we read the story, the origin, and the properties of that soil, and probably also the vocation of the soil. In some books, papers, soil is indicated as hidden resource, or in articles, the soil underfoot, a buried treasure, something which we do not immediately perceive. So we must look for it hidden. We find it stuck under our shoes. Sometimes this is not nice. It's a buried treasure. So to find it, we have to dig. Last but not least, dirt. The word dirt, the term dirt is used in everyday language in English, and it takes with it a negative connotation of soil. Dirt is also used in English as in a figurative way to indicate a dirt attitude, the dirty language, so in a very negative connotation. In Italy, we also use mudslinging machine when using words, epithets, or sentences thrown or in front of a person in order to damage his reputation or her reputation. This happens continuously in the press, TV, social media. So again, mud is something negative. So just to give you the negative impression I had yesterday while coming back home after a stroll in my garden with all this mud under my shoes. So all these aspects which are linked to terms, to the image we have of soil, do not help to vehicle the importance of this resource. Now I use resource, although I prefer environmental matrix. And this is why Professor Richard Bargett, when opening the first international conference on biodiversity in 2014, says, he started with soils are not sexy, saying that soils are not appealing. So it is a problem for us to communicate soil and to make sure that the informations and the beauty of soil can cross the borders of science. Just to give you another example of a vague and inappropriate use of terms. You all know the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And Professor Ratan Lal, that you know, is another soil ecologist, wrote the preface of the volume Soils and SDGs, and he stressed that the word soil is not once mentioned in each of these 17 goals, although they are linked to soils, as this nice scheme shows, provided by Kester et al. In 2016. They placed the Sustainable Development Goals in the outer circle, the gray one, and then they placed the ecosystem services in the green circle and soil functions in red in the inner circle. You can see that SDGs, all SDGs, apart from 4, so most of them, are directly or indirectly linked to ecosystem services, these are the green dots, and to soil functions, the red dots. And we also should remember that soil functions, we know that underpin most of ecosystem services. So directly or indirectly, all these SDGs are linked to soils, but the word soil doesn't appear in all these definitions, in all these goals, apart from here, land restoration. But again, the use of land, as I said before, embeds the identity of soils. So soils are not recognized. So what we need is a change of perspective and probably of language if we want that soil issues move outside of the science world and reach the outer world, the general public, in order to raise soil awareness and to take care of soils and to valorize them and protect them, particularly because they are non-renewable resources, a non-renewable resource. I will show you some examples of a change of perspective that has been already done in science. The soil security concept was introduced by McBratney et al. In 2014, and for the first time, soil security has been placed at the center of the main environmental issues of the 21st century. Food security, water security, biodiversity protection, all of them are based on if we secure soil security, we can guarantee all the others. But they did more. So they did not only place soil at the center of these environmental issues, but they also defined the dimensions of soil security. And this is another innovative aspect, according to me, that changed the perspective of looking at soils. They introduced the 5 pillars or 5 C's of soil security, which are capacity, condition, capital, codification, and connectivity. The first two, capacity and conditions, are linked to the description of and the study of the biophysical properties of soils. So in some way, we may say that they are similar to the concepts of soil quality and health that were introduced in the 90s by Doran and Parkin. But the new aspect are these 3 social dimensions. So capital is to place a monetary value to soil as natural capital, soil functions. So give a value to the precious soil functions that we have seen before in the picture from FAO. Codification, the importance and the necessity, the urgence to have a shared in a common framework, let's say in Europe, for instance, laws for protecting soil. And I have read that it has been recently accepted, a directive at European Union soil monitoring law, soil health monitoring law. So I hope that this will be obtained in the near future. And finally, connectivity. Connectivity means how do we talk about soil, how we communicate soil in different contexts within the society, through educational processes, with stakeholders, among and with decision makers. So connectivity probably is unfortunately, is one of the lesser explored soil security dimensions, with which, if it works well, can also secure these other 2, capital and codification. How can we enhance connectivity? Well, or reviewing soil terminology, making it clear, and I gave you some examples before. Re-establishing a soil ethics. This is a very delicate point that I will not discuss in this talk because it requires a revision of the moral attitude through which we approach to soil that we have in relation to the environmental issues. Just to give an example, the widely debated in science ecocentric approach and anthropocentric approach when relating to nature. But I will not discuss this because it will imply also spiritual, religious attitudes. And finally, using different communication tools other than those of science. So the soil security approach, according to me, was the first change of perspective that I found. The second one is more related to my personal experience. I tried to do my best many years ago, 10 years ago. I'm sorry. I hope the voice will work. I started to teach a course in a university humanities course. My course is entitled Soil as Cultural Heritage, and it is offered at the Conservation and Restoration of Cultural Heritage master degree and at the Heritage Studies degree, bachelor degree at the University of Tuscia. And the course is entitled Soil as Cultural Heritage because soils respond to the eligible requisites that an item or a site has to show if we want to call it cultural heritage. So the eligible requisites are historical, archaeological value, aesthetical, and anthropological and ethnological value. In this course that I share with my colleague, Sara Marinari, we talk about soil as custodian of the memory of human history and civilization, particularly in conserving and preserving the archaeological remains, so through the specific physical, chemical, and biological properties of soils. On the other hand, soil is also the custodian of the natural events, and this is an example of a soil, a paleosoil, whose pedogenesis was stopped by the volcanic eruption occurred at Civita di Bagnoregio 500,000 years ago, which is the object of an interesting study which is carried out now by my colleague Sara Marinari and our group. Another change of perspective, always within the world of science. Finally, I find a strong connection being published and being communicated within the scientific platforms between human health and soil health. So I show you here two articles that I found, recent articles, and also the One Health approach that has been introduced by the European Union was the object of the recent meeting of the Agricultural Sciences Association here in Italy last week. This is important because soil health is human health, as this nice infographic from FAO reminds us where food begins. Although this change of perspectives have been introduced, they are still buried, and in this case, the buried adjective or verb in this case is properly used. So soils are buried in the scientific frameworks, within the scientific frameworks, so they don't cross the borders of science. Why? Because the tools that we use, our language, require a high level of specialization. So this language is not suitable for broad audience, or to be used with policy or decision makers. So what we can do is to integrate the objective approach, which deals with quantitative data, which is typical of science and technology. We could integrate this approach with a subjective one, which which is based on qualitative aspects, qualitative features of soils in this case, and which is filtered through the personal perception of soil of each one of us, so our emotions, which is typical of human sciences and arts. And these two approaches have been also indicated by this German scientist, researcher, Kurt, who she said that we must use she presented this nice play on words between Wissenschaft and Wissenform. So the form, the production of knowledge and the form of knowledge. So if science produces knowledge, human sciences and arts give form to the knowledge. And this is necessary when we want to understand nature. So images can help. Communicating through images may help a lot because one picture is worth 10,000 words, as most proverbs say. Now we are surrounded by images, and visual arts are commonly used in politics, cultural context, societal, in the society, and so on. The communication through images is effective because when there are linguistic barriers or where concepts are too complex to convey, and we know we are now in a global arena of image-based communication. So in this moment, we must take this moment because soil contents may be easily conveyed in a very extraordinary way. I give you an example of effective examples in science. This is an old example. All of you probably have studied in this book, Principles of Biochemistry, written by Leininger. This is my own copy, a very old one. And when the authors started to describe the supercoiling of DNA double helix, they gave us they provided us this familiar domestic object that was in every house, not now, because now we have cordless telephones. But at that time, the typical coiling on itself of the telephone cable was a familiar image that helped us to understand the concept of DNA double helix supercoiling. So this is an effective example in science. Other effective examples in science now, recently, have been the introduction of the graphical abstract. According to me, this is very useful and integrates naturally the contents of the paper, giving simple and schematic information on the results of the paper, arrows indicating processes, numbers, acronyms, and colors. So I find them extremely self-explaining. This comes from two recently published articles where I am co-author. There is another example, effective example in science to communicate complex contents that has been already presented in a previous webinar by in Cedric by Professor Insam, which are the warming stripes. The warming stripes presented by Ed Hawkins some years ago that I always show to my students, which is a very potent, powerful way to easily inform anyone who doesn't know anything about temperature anomalies, what is happening to our atmosphere in terms of temperature from the second half of the 19th century until now. We tried, let's say, an experiment with my colleague Sara Marinari in a poster that we presented some months ago at the centennial of the International Union of Soil Sciences held in Florence in May. So we wanted to show how differently can be conveyed the information on soil diversity, on pedodiversity, if we use the scientific language for scholars or if we use visual language. For scientific language, for scholars, for pedologists, these are the terms that are used. I'm not a pedologist, but these are the terms that are normally used, the soils classification, soil taxonomy, the name of the horizons, the acronyms used for the color. You see here the profile, the soil profile, and each horizon is indicated by letters and numbers. A little bit complicated to be understood by ordinary people. But I bumped, what happened, I bumped into an Instagram account of a colleague of ours, so a soil ecologist. She is also an artist. And she gave me this incredibly wonderful and effective drawing of the 12 orders of soil taxonomy. And she gives all the information we need, just drawing a simple line which moves from the surface or to the bottom or the other way back, because we know that pedogenesis involves both components, the above ground and the below ground, and the lithological context. She shows some typical horizons, such as the horizon of the spodosols. She informs us about very young soils, like antisols or insectisols, which are just started the process of their formation. And then she ends with the typical vegetation that we have in certain kind of soils, aridi soils with cactus, molly soils with lawns or prairies, and spodosols with conifers. She also adds this nice sticker introducing one of the important components, factor of soil formation, such as time, saying good things take time to develop, making a reference to the very slow process of pedogenesis. So I think that with 6 words and a line, she was able to convey a lot of information related to pedodiversity. In a more simplified way, we can also play with colors, juxtaposing, as I did for the students, soil profiles from different colors and different horizons, or when I personally play with acrylic paintings, just using the different colors of soils. Also, dealing with colors, there is another way. I found another effective example of informing about soil diversity. This was an exhibition which was held in Paris 2017, entitled Jardin. And this Japanese artist produced this artwork, which measures 10 meters per 10 meters. It is a large board where he arranged a sequence of 400 samples of soil that he collected traveling from the source of the Loire River to the estuary of Loire, so crossing horizontally France. And this is amazing because it gives immediately the idea of the diversity of soil, and you can also experience, going a little bit closer, their granulometry and the texture. So art can do something with soil. Art can help soil. Let's see how. First of all, there are some authors who talked about, who dealt with the relationship between art and soil in the literature, in the scientific literature. There are 2 articles, if you're interested. This one was written by Hans Jenny, who is the father of pedology in 1968. Second one is more recent, written by Feller et al. In 2015. In both cases, they provide a very exhaustive review of history of art, from the cave paintings to the modern contemporary installation, and they analyze how the artist related himself with soil. I won't go through this now, naturally, but they place a benchmark at the 20th century. So until the 20th century, the soil has never been the subject of the artwork. Just to give you some example, particularly in paintings dealing with religious topics, the soil was rocky, lifeless. Sometimes it was just a line, or it was without colors. So the artist was forced to draw, to insert the soil in the seed, because it was the base over which the seed was developing, but he was not interested in providing additional information. There is even lack of color here. This is funny because in this painting of the 16th century, luxuriant meadow is placed over the rocks, so there is no soil between. Soils were also painted when the object of the painting, the artwork, was to give importance to the different agricultural practices that were carried out in relation to the succession of seasons, or in paintings dealing with the religious topics, soils were depicted in relation with the resurrection of deaths, as this final judgment of van der Weyden. In the landscape painting of the 17th century, so the landscape, as I said before, included soil, but it is fuzzy. Probably only the color helps us to find it and to understand that the painter wanted to give a brief sign of the soil. In this case, in realism with Millet, the soil is painted, but just because there is the peasant who is the subject of the artwork. So the subject of the artwork is the peasant work, the man with a hoe. And finally, we arrive at the 20th century with many examples ranging from Impressionism to Expressionism, where the artist is not, it is not his intention to talk about soil, to give us information on the soil, but unconsciously Cézanne informs us of the calcareous soil in Provence, in Mediterranean environment. Gauguin informs us of the reddish soils of the tropics in Tahiti. Grant Wood informs us on the molly salts in Midwest in America with these organic rich horizons. And Schmidt-Rottluff gives information on the podsol and the alluvial horizon in these soils in the northern of Germany. What happens in the 20th century? In the 20th century, starting from the first half, the soil becomes the only subject of the artwork. So this is important. Soil is the protagonist of the artwork. And the first example is given by Jean Dubuffet with this texturology series where soils are placed directly over the canvas. 2010 marks the period when soil art movement starts, and it was initiated and proposed by Gerd Vessolek, who is a soil scientist. I must underline that most soil scientists are artists, because probably they are the first to understand that it is another way to convey soil issues to a broader public. The soil art movement includes artworks and any artistic work about soil, in soil or with soil, or done with soil. We start with these nice sketches, colored sketches provided by Gerd Vessolek, who show the aesthetics of soil profiles, and together with the notes that are written by pedologists when describing the soil profile. This is another interesting use of soil for making art. This is the exact way to say it, because soil was shaped to form ingots. Why ingots? Because this author wanted to stress the fact that soils have an important value that still we don't understand. And also these soil samples have been shaped like coins. So we go back to the concept of soil, the natural capital of soil. What about this installation in an exhibition held in Dresda, where we are invited to see what is hidden under a square meter of meadow. So this is a column exposing a soil profile. And I want to finish this presentation of the 20th century art examples of art with this painting produced by Ken van Ries, who is another soil scientist, who has collected soils beside along the transect beside the highway number 2, which crosses Canada from north to south, just collecting soil and making these rubbings of the soils. But this is not the only interesting fact. The interesting fact is that this painting has been purchased by the Senate of Canada, and it has been hung in the room where the Agricultural Commission meet each year to approve the soil health report. So I think that this is important because the activism of this soil scientist has been rewarded by the local authorities. And so this is a good way also to convey this information and soil issues to decision makers and policy makers. In the article written by Jenny in 1968, he said, if there is art in soil, why not take a section of a soil profile, frame it, and put it in an art gallery? This is what has been done in many museums now, luckily, also in Italy. And these nice soil profiles, for instance, in this museum in Wageningen, show aesthetical value and are used for academic, for teaching purposes. Two striking artworks that I really find powerful. They both artists literally brought soil within a museum room, although antithetically, because Walter de Maria brought tons of soils and Urs Fischer removed the floor of the gallery, digging. So in both cases, the visitor is granted a physical experience, which according to me is really important and also elevates, with this act, they elevated the soil to the level of artworks, thus ascribing to the soil an immaterial value. Examples of land art, and I'm going to finish, be patient, just 2 minutes. And the land art also helps a lot in conveying soil properties. And these are the work of Stridon van der Merwe. I find this unrolling lawn fantastic because it invites the viewer to look under the lawn or to look under the bed, the river, the dried river bed. Also, the door placed horizontally in this other artwork invites the visitor to open it and discover the fascinating world of soil underneath. And finally, the earthscapes. These are artworks made with sand, which is ephemeral art made by Andres Amador, are extremely powerful and striking. I finish with this, an effective initiative. I found at the Prado Museum some months ago. I was visiting this museum. It was called the Botanical Stroll. What was it? It was a museum route marked by panels which were hung under some paintings. So we visitors were invited to follow an exhibition within the exhibition dealing with plants, with botanical aspects. So for details of the plants, fruits, herbs that were painted by the painter in each painting were analyzed and provided information on classification, symbolism, use. So this kind of lighted me in me a light, a lamp. So what about a pedological stroll in the Uffizi Gallery or Vatican Museum? This would be an interesting project to work with at. Final remarks. So soil knowledge and awareness of soils is trapped, is locked within scientific community. What we can do, what we must do, is to find a way to break these borders and to move this information and transfer it to the outer world, to the society, to other segments of the society, possibly using tools, languages easily understood by everybody. And I think that artistic language and artworks show a great potential. So we can reshape our relationship with soil. We can convey complex concepts related to soil. So this is a vehicle to spark understanding and also to motivate people to take action in protecting soil. This can be decision makers, but this also youngsters, because young generation are in charge to take care of soil and for soil stewardship in the near future. A transdisciplinary approach between hard and soft sciences is necessary, and naturally, it is implicit that images and art cannot replace the content and the rigorous approach that science demands. But they can complement our work, and if it is done, and if it is obtained in this way, so with the support of science, governments, civil society, and businesses can ensure and must ensure that soil is not treated like dirt. These are the I made a synthesis of this recently published article together with my colleague Sara Marinari, and I thank you for your attention and patience. I think I went a little bit beyond the time allowed.
Thank you a lot for your talk. And I think you should be named Soil Ambassador to the United Nations because no one but you can tell to the public so well how important soils are and how we should confer the knowledge. So I wonder if there is some questions in the audience. So you may pose your questions in the chat, or you may pose them personally online. So please, if there is questions, come up with them.
Is there? Thank you very much, Christina. I really sorry, Heribert. I just take the floor. Can I? Is okay?
Fine.
So thank you very much. And I think I mean I come from a generation where we scientists. I mean, when I started research, there was basically very little communication of what we did, and today what I see today is that the communications office in an institute is now becoming very important, which is so hopefully in the future things will improve. So I think we are coming from a generation. I'm coming from a generation where we didn't want to communicate what we did, and this also had a lot of negative effect. I mean, things like, for example, a topic like GMO and other topics, I think are the result of the bad communication we had in the past.
Certainly, I agree.
I mean, is there a World Soil Day, or is there some? Have the United Nations now made a, like, following from Heribert said? I know the United Nations is trying to do a lot with soil. So I would just wondered, what is the United Nations doing in terms of promoting soil knowledge and the importance of soil health?
Well, but there are many initiatives, and now I can't go through this, but there are. I mean, they are working on it. I was just pointing to the fact that the word soil is missing in the SDGs, which is quite curious.
Yeah.
Which means that although in an important entity such as United Nations, it is lacking the profound knowledge that soils have got their own identity, which must be respected and considered.
Yes.
But there are many initiatives on soil health. Naturally, I can hope, and luckily, I'm happy to see that the concept of soil health is moving around quickly since it was introduced in the 90s. So this is important. But I still that we still have to do something. I mean, there is still some.
And also today there is the concept of One Health, which is now picking up a lot, right?
Yeah, I found it very, very useful for the purpose, because if we talk of One Health, because we live in the same system altogether, so we must cope with the environment and understand how we can move and how much we can use of this environment, what is our fingerprint of the environment. Luckily, we can measure our impact, with the ecological footprint or other systems of measure. So this is important. But environment, land, but soil is something different. Soil has its own identity, its own precious properties, functions, and it's not renewable. This must be stressed.
I leave the floor. Just one last thing. I gave a talk to Italian middle school, so the age range between 11 and 14. And the students of 12, 13, they associated soil with bad bacteria, bad microbes. So the concept of the soil being very important for our health, being important for all the cycles of all the elements, is not into the students. So they associate soil as being dirty and a source of disease rather than a source of health and important for our health. That's all. So there's a lot of work to do. A lot
of work to do. But at this purpose, I think that Professor Hinsam is working in a magnificent way, because I've seen the initiative of Micromondo. And I don't know, Heribert, if you have already talked about this to this audience, or you want to say something. I cannot do it. You must do it on this purpose. But you did an incredible effort in doing this, in moving outside the science borders and take the science information, soil microbes, soil organisms outside to the outer world.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you also for mentioning Micromondo. And indeed, the soil scientists and the microbiologists are facing the same problems. As Vittorio just said, that it's only the bad sides of both microorganisms and soils that is being conveyed to the public. And we both have to, microbiologists and soil scientists, and probably also other sciences, have to tell to the public how nicely are all these entities cooperating with man if we just let them cooperate with us. So we have to, we don't have just to value them by monetarily, but we have to value them. We have to appreciate them also ethically, and we just should love the soil. And this is what projects like Micromondo aim to promote. Micromondo, by the way, Christina, it's on the way of realization, and we hope to open it in a few months. So we are on the way. But also forms of conveying knowledge are related to arts, and that's filmmaking. And Christina used to be a speaker at our Innsbruck Nature Film Festival several years ago, when we had introduced the best film on the topic of soil as an award. In the year 2015, and 2015 was the International Year of Soils. That may answer Vittorio's question, if there is something done in this area. 2015 was the International Year of the Soils, and we just learned from the chat that the 5th of Johannes told us the 5th of December is the International Day of Soils, and there is also an International Decade of the Soils that started in 2015 and is ending this year. So maybe this year may be a good point of time to do something about publicizing knowledge on soils. And Cedric will do a little share of it, I hope. Yeah, so we are all working on that, and we need to be loud and scream out if too many soils are being replaced by roads and other concrete buildings. So soil sealing, as you mentioned in the morning, is a big problem, not only in Italy but also in Austria, and it is political decisions that facilitate the sealing of soils, and this should be stopped immediately, definitely. So after this warming up discussion, are there any more comments from the audience?
Yes, there is Johannes with a hand on.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Helga, for mentioning the Nature Film Festival of Innsbruck already. I'm here to represent Thomas Beham from the Tyrolean Regional Government, and under his lead, we designed in my perspective, beautiful exhibition about soil last year at the Nature Film Festival, and the whole exhibition had the idea of explaining people the beauty of soil by using all 5 senses. So we really tried to include visual, olfactory sense, and we even found a project in Switzerland, which I have a flyer here, and I really recommend to check it on the website.
Oh, sound in the soil, yeah.
Yeah, so it's even possible to listen to the sounds of soil, and I think it was a very good example how soil science can be brought to a bigger audience by making the people experience the soil, not only with cognitive.
Yes,
but yeah.
There's many examples. I was looking in the internet in these days preparing this talk, and luckily I'm happy that the thing is going on. So I think that arts are more and more being used to convey soil issues. If all of you, some of you have the chance to go to London in these days, there is an incredibly interesting exhibition entitled "The World Beneath Our Feet" at the Somerset House, because they celebrate, I think, the 25th, I don't remember which anniversary is celebrated. Anyway, It's a very nice exhibition, and and the soil naturally is the protagonist with many different forms of art, from immersive installation, videos, objects, and so on. So luckily now there are many forms of art that help us to convey the issues and the instances of soil which are difficult to convey because of all the obstacles that I have discussed in the previous part of the talk.
I would have another question to Christina. You mentioned the economic, cultural, and ecological value of soils that is being discussed, or that's appreciated. Shouldn't we even put a fourth value to it, which goes beyond ecological? That would be the climatological value.
Also, yes. Yeah, I think, well, probably climatological is inside the ecological, but if we put it aside as a fourth category, that would stress it more. That would stress the importance of soils in influencing climate change, because most people don't know this. So it would be, yes, why not? Why not? Certainly, it can be another aspect that must be taken aside. Just to give an example of, you were talking about urbanization, sealing, also in your country and so on. We are witnessing, particularly in Italy, particularly in my region, in this period, to a vast, immense solar parks, ground-mounted photovoltaic panels over our land. We have hundreds of hectares which are being converted to this form of renewable energy of ground-mounted panels in our area. But the soil is not, soil conditions are not good under the panels. We made a study on this. We published a paper, and nobody knows this. Or we should tell people that this kind of renewable energy, which is important, but probably on the roofs of over areas where soil has been already consumed, has been already used, but not on fertile land, because the results we obtained were not nice. Soil was degraded under the panels, and when you remove them, it will be complicated to re-obtain the soil biological, not only chemical, but biological fertility that it had at the beginning. So this is another environmental issue, which is linked to the fact that all these companies do not know anything about soils. They just start these projects and having only done a geological survey. But the geological survey is not enough, because geology is not pedology or soil science.
If there aren't any more comments, I would like to finish this discussion, and I like to thank Christina again for her talk. And I hope that in the future, soils are going to be more interested in the life of the soils, the microorganisms in the soils, than in the life on Mars, which where apparently currently much more money is spent on looking at than for the soil.
Yes, probably
science.
Probably Mars soil would obtain
Yes.
more interest.
Right.
Can I, Heribert, sorry, can I say
Yes.
something? Or Heribert, can I say
Yes.
something? Also, I mean, a big word that is a big term that is used today is biodiversity, right? And the soil is by far the highest biodiversity of life on Earth. So also maybe this can be an ally for us in order to promote soil. So using the word biodiversity connected to soil, it could be something to think about, right?
It is certainly, yes. And this, again, this is not known. I always talk to the student and tell them, when I ask them, when I say biodiversity, what do you think about? And they say plants, parrots, butterflies. And then I show them all the incredible richness of species and of biodiversity level that we have in the soil, no?
Yeah, and this is combined, Christina, to the fact that 95% of life on Earth is microbial.
Yeah.
Biodiversity of
It's
of life
microbial.
is
It's microbial. But
So
the problem,
yeah,
the problem is that we cannot see it.
right.
So here is the obstacle. What prevents us to be the society to be aware of this richness is the fact that microbes are not easily seen.
Exactly.
As
Exactly.
we see plants, flowers, or butterflies.
What we see is the tip of the iceberg. What we don't see is really what keeps us alive. If we, if we lose, if some, I mean, it's not nice to say, but if some animals go extinct, it's a pity. It's a pity for the planet, but it's not a big deal for the health of the planet. But if we lose soil biodiversity, then we're in trouble. We're in big trouble. Yeah. And this concept is not really understood and taken up by people.
Yeah, because we have really obstacles, real obstacles, no? Of knowledge, of seeing things like we don't see soil.
Yeah, we think about the white tiger and Mars, like Heribert said.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Christine. It's
Thanks
very
to you.
important. Your talk was very important for the project because it gives us
I hope
very
so.
important,
Well, soil is there, so we must deal with it.
Definitely, we will reconnect again. Definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you for inviting me. Thanks a lot. Bye, Harry. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.